Water comes to us 13 years after the original Avatar came out in 2009 and is once again directed by James Cameron and co-written by him and Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be doing a spoiler review for The Way of Water. In case if I do, I'll just keep the plot synopsis brief. It takes place 5 years after the events of the first film. Jake Sully is now living on Pandora with Neytiri and their family, and a new or old threat arises and he must protect his family at all costs. I'm somebody who's not a huge fan of the first one. Well, I shouldn't say a huge fan. I find it to be an entertaining movie. I don't find it to be the grand old masterpiece that people assume it is. I also don't think it's nearly as average as people think it is. I'm entertained by that movie, but I think it's very, very hollow in its story, which I could live with if it had good characters, but I don't even think the characters in that movie are good. I rewatched this morning and I can't name a single character in that movie except for Jake Sully and how do you say Stephen Lang's name in this? His character's name, Quatrich or something. I think I'm saying it wrong, but that's how I'm going to say it for the review. There's no denying that James Cameron is a perfectionist. That's why it took forever for this movie to come out. He wanted to do a lot of motion capture underwater, and the underwater sequences and the visuals in general are flooring. This is photorealistic, man. I mean, I would not be surprised if James Cameron claimed that he went up into space, found a planet that looked like Pandora, went to that planet, filmed the entire alien population of that planet, and made a movie out of it. He didn't do it, but that's what this movie feels like. It's so photorealistic. Motion capture has come such a long way, and the fact that they can now do it underwater is even more groundbreaking, and James Cameron is the man to perfect something like that. It's so visually striking and so visually breathtaking and flooring that it's one of those movies that puts me in a summertime vibe. Like Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, it is freezing cold here in Boston. It's New England weather. Like, and you're probably saying to yourself, well, if you hate the cold, why don't you just move? Well, I'm used to it at this point. I've been here for almost 30 years, so I'm used to it at this point. But sometimes in the winter, I pop in Pirates of the Caribbean just to put me in that summer mood where I imagine and I feel like when I'm watching those movies that I'm on a beach sipping the juice out of a coconut somewhere with palm trees right above me and the Black Pearl sailing off into the horizon somewhere in the distance. Watching this movie with all the water sequences, or at least the vast majority of this movie has water sequences, that's how I felt. I was like, I feel like I'm back on a beach on a tropical island watching these people go about their lives. Like, James Cameron's direction and vision for this movie was spot on, and I see why it took so long to make this movie. 13 years. Originally, this was supposed to come out in 2014, but the technology that he wanted to use hadn't been developed yet, which is why it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed even further, to the point where I never thought that this movie was ever going to come out, and I thought that people probably wouldn't care, but they will, because apparently it's tracking over 500 million worldwide for its opening weekend. It's very vibrant. Bringing oceanography and aquatic life into the Avatar universe and seeing other sides of this world of Pandora not only is world building, it opens up the world a lot more, but it makes the movie a lot more vibrant and inviting. It makes you realize that you want to do something like that. And I don't want to hear any complaints that this movie is too blue. It's not that blue. Okay, that's pretty fucking blue. But going back to the world building for a minute, I really actually love the world building. I like seeing the different tribes of Pandora. I like seeing this other side of Pandora that we haven't seen. I like seeing the oceans, the water, the aquatic life of all these different creatures and how these creatures get involved in some of the breathtaking action scenes as well. It was just wonders to behold, and James Cameron knows how to deliver visual spectacle, and he knows how to up the ante in his sequels. This man has made two of the greatest sequels of all time. Now, to say that this is up there with Aliens and Terminator 2, I don't think so quite yet. I think that this, if we're talking about James Cameron sequels, I think this is the weakest of the three. But that doesn't mean I didn't have enjoyment and I wasn't floored by what I was watching on screen. There were so many things when it came to the world building and the visual effects where I just could not believe what I was seeing. I thought I literally was watching something that wasn't even like filmed. Like, I felt like I was watching James Cameron just film some things that weren't even tangible in real life, like that you couldn't do. Like, it's amazing how he did it. Let's talk about the characters for a minute, because The characters were a big issue I had with the first movie. They're somewhat of an issue here. They're not all that fleshed out. The script doesn't take the time to flesh them out, but what the script actually does do is give these characters emotional cores with other characters or objects of importance to them. And I think that that added a lot of emotional weight to the movie and made me care a little bit more than I probably should have for these characters and for some characters that I didn't care all that much about in the first one. There's things that happen towards the last chunk of this movie where I said, "Oh shit, is this character gonna die? Are they gonna live?" And like when I'm rooting for the character to live or for a certain character to die, you got me. That means I actually cared this time around. Like James Cameron took that problem and he fixed it, even if they aren't all that fleshed out and developed, and there's nothing really to the characters. It's more about what bonds the characters have together. The action scenes are really great too. I love how there's different elements to these action scenes. I love, again, how some aquatic animals get involved in the action scenes. To me, the action stuck out a lot more in this movie than it did compared to the first one. That was something about the first one too. I felt that the action was very forgettable. And while this movie is gargantuanly long at 3 hours and 12 minutes, because it wasn't only just action scenes, but it still felt like there were things going on in the more somber, quieter moments. Those things made the movie feel like it was shorter than it actually was. The movie had a good pace to it, and the final hour of the movie is, quite frankly, all action. It's a great final hour. It's not the best final hour in an action movie I've ever seen, but it's really fun. There's like 2 action sequences in that final hour. I preferred the first one because that's where some other creatures come into play. And that was a visually breathtaking action scene. That was one that stuck out. There's one towards the beginning, about maybe like 30 to 40 minutes in, that really sticks out to me. So the action here, I think, is helmed a lot better, and it's a lot more memorable than it is in the first one. It's that big action spectacle that we have come to expect from James Cameron's sequels, and he totally delivers. The story does feel rinse and repeat. It feels like it's the same narrative beats of the first movie. That's essentially what it is. It's such a simple story. But I like when sci-fi movies have this simplicity to it where you don't have to think about it all that much. You can easily just follow along with it. So I can overlook that. Now, since I've been praising the movie a lot, I think everybody's thinking that I'm thinking that this is like God's perfect masterpiece or something, and it's not. I have some issues with The Way of Water. First, I think the script needs a little bit of work. I don't know if it was the dialogue with one character named Spider, if it was the actor, but some of that dialogue that he was delivering was weak, or is how he delivered it. I don't like talking bad about child or teenage actors, but wasn't very good. There were some holes with that character. There were some holes with his motivations, and he kept going back and forth. It felt like Mac from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and so I wasn't hugely on board with that character and what his goals essentially were. There were a lot of holes in the script there, and also, I don't know if this is only in the 3D screenings, because I saw it in Dolby, and it was Dolby 3D, but the frame rate, man, holy shit, I was getting a headache after a while. Man, James Cameron is as bad as changing the frame rate every 5 seconds as Michael Bay is changing the frame rate every 5 seconds in the Transformers movies. I don't know which one was worse. I don't know which one was more noticeable, but Jesus Christ, I noticed it, and it got on my nerves after a while. It took some adjusting to, and then once I adjusted to it, I immediately recognized it again, and it just stuck with me for the rest of the movie. I don't know what it was, but like seriously, the frame rate for this movie, it was so strange, because when it changed from certain frame rates, like there were certain scenes that felt like, this is what it felt like to me, that it was actual gameplay from a game, and then the frame rate would change to like frame rates that you see in cutscenes in a video game. So I felt like I was watching somebody play a video game that I was unable to play. And that was really, really annoying. Because if this was a video game and it kept doing that, I'd get annoyed, or I'd just go into settings and change the fidelity or the frame rate, whatever it is. So I really want to see it again in digital, like regular digital, to see if that is the case. And I hope that's not on the home media releases, because it was really, really annoying in Dolby. I mean, the sound kicked ass in Dolby, but the frame rate was really, really getting on my nerves after a while, just switching back and forth every 5 seconds. If it was every once in a while, I'd probably be more nitpickish about it, or I probably wouldn't be bitching about it at all. But It was so noticeable, and it kept happening that it was just annoying. I just wanted it to pick a frame rate and stay in that frame rate. But I was actually surprised with how much I liked The Way of Water. It's not a masterpiece by any means, nor is the first one, but I did like it a lot more than the first one. And I think it was just because there were some action scenes that stuck out. I was blown away by the visuals in this movie, but it had more of an emotional weight with its characters and some character bonds that I feel like the first one really neglected. And because of that, I really enjoyed Avatar: The Way of Water with a full bucket of popcorn. So guys, what did you think of Avatar: The Way of Water? Like I said, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be doing a spoiler review. If I do, that'll be up by the end of the weekend or next week at some point if I decide to do it. So keep an eye out for that if I decide to do it. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Drop me some feedback as to what you thought of the movie in the comment section below. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.